Okay, so with this lesson, lesson 1 and lesson 2, we are going to be practicing on coordinate grid. And we are going to be looking at using number lines and coordinates. So the first thing that we need to look at is the word origin. And the origin is when you're looking at a number line, or later on when we're doing the coordinate grid, you're going to see the word origin a few times. So whenever you see the word origin, you need to know that it's the point on the number line that is labeled 0. So it's the starting point of a number line. So anytime you see the word origin, that just means 0. So a coordinate just tells the distance from the origin. So anytime that whenever you're doing coordinates or coordinate grid, it just tells you how far the object, the shape, the dot, or whatever, how far it is from the origin or from 0. So in this case, we're just doing number lines, but whenever later on, when we have more than one number, it will tell you how far it is from 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice taking a number line and breaking it up into parts and saying what value letters can be. So we're going to start with our origin, and I'm going to show you how to break it up into parts. So okay, so I have this, and if I put the letter B here, the C there, and the letter A there. So I want you to say, what is the value of C? What is the value of C? Okay, that should be pretty simple because you can tell that the number line, each of these should have a value of 1. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines. So each of these should have a value of 1. So C is 5. So what is the value of A? You should have said 9. So what is the value of B? You should have said 2. Okay, so now I'm going to make this one a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to put up a new number line. And I want you to turn and talk to your partner or to your group and see if you can figure out, that's a 1, and see if you can figure out the value of each letter. I want you to turn and talk to your group. Okay, so you should have just taken just maybe a couple seconds or 20 seconds to figure that out. Okay, so if you see you've got your origin 0 to 1, how many lines are there between 0 to 1? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your whole is 5. So this 5 fifths. So this first line is 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. So if you put that D was on 1/5, very good. F was 3/5, E is 4/5. If you didn't get that, that's okay. That was kind of difficult. Okay? Let's try another. Put in my origin. Oops. Okay, so now I want you to see if you can tell me the value in your group. I want you to turn and talk for about a minute. Do the value of G, J, and H. Figure out the value of G, J, and H. So if you look, you can see that between 0, your origin, and 1, you have 1 hash mark. So to go from 1 here to 1 there, you only have 2 lines. So this would be 1/2 to 2/2. So then here would be 3/2, 1 and 1/2. So then what would this be? 4/2, which would be 2. This would be 5/2, which is 2.5. 6/2, which is 3. 7/2, which would be 3.5. 8/2, which would be 4. 9/2, 4.5. 10/2, which would be 5. So if you got that G is 1.5, J was 3.5, H was 4.5. Okay, so I want you to get the problem set, and I want us to work on this together. Now, one thing that I want you to be aware of is that, yes, the line does go diagonally, but that doesn't really matter. Lines can go diagonally, lines can go straight up and down, lines can go side to side, lines can go any direction. So as long as the line, the line can be straight, you've got your arrows going on and on, it doesn't matter which way they're going. It does not matter. We have our origin, we have our hash marks. So really the main thing that we want to do first is we need to label our hash marks so that we can identify the coordinates for each of our shapes. So what you can do, see if you can work with your group, with your team member or your group member, the person that's sitting beside you, and see if you can figure out what each of these hash marks are. So I'm going to give you just a moment to work with the person beside you to figure out what those hash marks are. If you see that you've got 1, 2, and then the 3, the 1 counts as one of those hash marks because it's a whole. So take just about 2 minutes to label your hash marks. So do that right now. You need to hit pause. Okay. This is 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. If you labeled them incorrectly, you need to make sure that you correct it. So then this would not just be 1/3, this would be 1 and 1/3. 1 and 2/3. This is 1 and 3/3, which is why it's 2. 2 and 1/3, 2 and 2/3, 2 and 3/3, which is why it's 3. 3 and 1/3, 3 and 2/3, 3 and 3/3, which makes it 4. 4 and 1/3, 4 and 2/3, 4 and 3/3 makes it 5. So now you can label, you can write what is the coordinate of the x. Do you have to write 2 and 3/3? No, I prefer that you don't. I was just showing you how you get 3. So what is the coordinate of the x? You should put 3. So go ahead and write the coordinates of those other 3 shapes. So do that now. It should not take long. So the circle, 2 and 1/3. The star is just 2/3, and the square is 4 and 2/3. Okay, so now we're doing this a little bit different. It says plot A so that its distance from the origin is 2. So the first thing you want to do is you might want to go ahead and label your hashes, because I like to figure out exactly where everything is going. So I have 1, 2, 3 hashes from the origin 0 to 3. So each one of those lines, I know that each one of those is 1, 2, and that's 3. So each one is worth 1. So on what line should I be putting the letter A? So I want you to think about where should plot A so that its distance from the origin is 2. The origin is 0. I like to think about origin. Oh, origin looks like a 0. So your A should just be there. Now, they're not all going to be that easy. So B, even though the line is going diagonal, it doesn't matter. Plot R so that its distance from the origin is 5/2. It does not matter that it is an improper fraction. Just leave it improper. It does not matter. So see if you can figure out where 5/2 is. If you want to do this with the person you're sitting beside, that's okay. You do need to start trying to get this on your own, but if you're feeling comfortable working with someone, that's okay. You cannot get up and walk around the room. So do that now. Okay, so 1/2. So then this is 2/2, which is 1. 3/2, 4/2, which is 2. 5/2, 6/2, which is 3. So 5/2, the R should be right there. Plot L so that its distance from the origin is 20. Now, if you notice on these, my numbers are actually going backwards. So you really have to pay attention. Now, I have trouble counting backwards sometimes, so I may not want to go from 50 down to 35. So I have trouble doing that sometimes. So I know that between 50 to 35, I know that there's 15 in there. So, so from 35 something, let's see, 35. So I want to see if you guys can figure that one out numbering your lines to get from 35 to 50 because I don't like counting backwards. I'm going to start from 35 and count up so that I can figure out what needs to go behind it. So I want you to think about going up. You figure it out however works for you. So work with your partner if you need to. So do that. Okay, so what I did, I went from 35, I'm going to try 40, 45, and then 50. So the lines actually went by fives. So now I know 35, I can go backwards, 30, 25, and then 20. Now, if your lines went like that, that's great. So then plot L so that its distance from the origin is 20. So then the origin would be way back 0 where I can't see it. But it doesn't matter because I've got my little arrow right here, which means it's going to keep going. So plot L, so its distance from the origin is 20. That means right there. Point a plot T so that its distance from the origin is 2/3 more than that of X. So it's not saying 2/3, it's saying 2/3 more than that of X. So S is wherever it is, and we need 2/3 more. So we have 4 something, 4 1/3, something, 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 and then 5. So this one requires a little bit of math. So I want you to work with a partner, on your own, however you want to do it, and see if you can figure out where T is supposed to go. So take a moment and do that. So let's see. So I know that I've got 4, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines in between the 4 and the 5. So I know that if I take these and I split them up, they are divided into 6. So this is actually 4 and 1/6. This is 4 and 2/6, which is where they're getting the 1/3 because they just simplified it. 4 and 3/6, which is 4 1/2. 4 and 4/6, 4 and 5/6. So we need 2/3 more than that of X. So 2/3 more. So if we have 4 and 1/6, oops, I didn't even write that right. 1/6 plus 2/3. I can't add those. I need a common denominator. So my common denominator would be 6 times 2, 4, 6. Oops. 4 and 1/6 plus, it would go at 4 and 5/6. Right there. It wouldn't go anywhere else. It wouldn't go at the 2/6 because there's a 2. It wouldn't go here. It wouldn't go here because there's a 3. It has to go up 2/3 more up there to the 5/6. There's a whole lot of work on here. Let's move this out of the way. Number the line G, and all they did was just number line G. Number line G. It has it labeled the line from 0 to 6. So it's already been labeled and it's going backwards. Use number line G below to answer the questions. So plot point A at 3/4. So what we need to really do is label the hashes. So, because that's really the best thing to do. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, oops, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4, 10/4, 11/4, 12/4. Now some of these you might need to make them mixed because they've got some mixed on here. 14, I'm getting sloppy. 14/4, 15/4, 16/4, 17/4, 18/4, 19/4, 20/4, 21/4, 22/4, 23/4, and then 24/4. And so you need to make sure that you write things under the lines a little bit neater, a little bit neatly, because when they get too smushy, you can't really keep up with it very well. So when I get here with 5/4, I might write 1 1/4 under there, 1 2/4 under there, 1 3/4 under there. That's the 2. 2 1/4, 2 2/4. Oops, 2 3/4. Just because. Oh, that's not what I meant. It starts to get cluttered after a while, but you get the point. So see if you can do A through F with your partner or on your own, and see if you can plot these points in the right spot. So you can take, how about you take about 5 minutes? Okay, plot point A at 3/4. That's easy. Label a point that lies at 4.5 as B. Well, 4, if you had finished marking these, 4.5 would be right here as B. Label a point C whose distance from 0 is 5 more than that of A. Well, A was 3/4. Well, 5 more than A would be 5 3/4. So C would be 5 3/4. Plot a point D whose distance from 0 is 1 1/4 less than that of B. Well, B, when we said that that was 4.5 or 4 2/4, 1 1/4 less. So 4 2/4 less than 1 1/4. So that would be 4 minus 1 is 3, 2 minus 1 is 1. So D should be 3 1/4. You should be checking your letters, and if they're wrong, you need to fix it. The distance of E from 0 is 1 3/4 more than that of D. So D was 3 1/4. And E is 1 3/4 more. So that would be 4 4/4, which would be 5. So that should be E at 5. What is the coordinate of the point that lies halfway between A and D? Label this point F. So if we have 3/4 here and 3 1/4 here. So what is directly, we have this here and we have this here, what is right smack in the middle? Right smack in the middle. It's 2. Okay. Mrs. Fan asked her 5th grade class to create a number line. Lennox created the number line below. Park said Lennox's number line is wrong because numbers should always increase from left to right. Who is correct? Explain your thinking. So, is Lennox's number line right or wrong? I want you to discuss that with your partner and come up with an answer. Okay? You should have discussed it, and Lennox is actually correct. If you've thought about any of the other number lines that we had, Lennox I wasn't looking. It is correct. Because it starts at 0. And one of the other things that I didn't bring up was she has even intervals. It goes from 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12. It skips evenly. So if it went from 0 to 1, 2 to 4, 4 to 10, it would not be a correct number line. But she's doing, like, she's skipping her numbers and she's skipping it evenly. So her number line is correct. It doesn't have to be left to right. So it's okay. So because it's equal intervals. A pirate marked the palm tree on his treasure map and buried his treasure 30 feet away. Do you think he will be able to easily find his treasure when he returns? Why or why not? What might he do to make it easier to find? Do you think that he would be able to look for the treasure 30 feet from this tree? Do you think that it would be easy to find his treasure? Why or why not? You guys should be able to answer that one easily. Absolutely not. Okay. Now this is for lesson 2. You will have lesson 1 homework that you should be able to do. Okay. Okay, so this is for lesson 2, and this is a little bit different from lesson 1, and this is dealing with a coordinate grid. You have the template for this on the table, and yours, the lines are a little bit lighter in the middle. But when you get it, what I want you to do is I want you to label this line on the bottom. Is called the x-axis. The x-axis always runs right to left. And I want you to label the y-axis. The y-axis always runs up and down. It runs perpendicular. The origin is always here in the middle. It's always there where the x-axis and the y-axis intersect. So when we are doing coordinate grid, it's very important to know how to do coordinate grid because we do them when we do maps. One of the other things that you are going to run into is what we call a coordinate pair. And they are always x-axis, y-axis. Always. You always go, just like an airplane. An airplane has to go down the runway before it goes up. It always has to go across and then up. I know that some people go up and then over. Airplanes don't take off that way. So if I were going to ask you to create a coordinate grid or plot points, what you would need to do is you would need to create a coordinate grid, or I would need you to label it. So, you know, across the bottom, you might need to label your lines. Oops, wrong spot. You would need to label it with like a 1, 2, 3, 4. You would need to label these little spots here, like so, and then label your y-axis also. Sometimes we'll even label them with fractions. And then if I asked you to label a point at, say, 4, 5, then you would go over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it would go, you know, here and then there, and that is where the points would intersect. It would, you always have to go over and then up. And we'll practice that more in further lessons. But I really want you to focus on, you're going to spend a lot of time more on lesson 1 today. Please do your homework, and then you will do lesson 3 tomorrow. Thank you very much.